The law of prosperity. Yea, the Almighty shall be thy defense, and thou shalt have plenty of silver. One of the greatest messages given to the race through the scriptures is that God is man's supply, and that man can release through his spoken word all that belongs to him by divine right. He must, however, have perfect faith in his spoken word. Isaiah said, "My word shall not return unto me void, but shall accomplish that whereunto it is sent." We know now that words and thoughts are a tremendous vibratory force, ever molding man's body and affairs. A woman came to me in great distress and said how she was to be sued on the 15th of the month for $3,000. She knew no way of getting the money and was in despair. I told her God was her supply and that there was a supply for every demand. So I spoke the word. I gave thanks that the woman would receive $3,000 at the right time in the right way. I told her she must have perfect faith, act her perfect faith. The 15 came, but no money materialized. She called me on the phone and asked what was she to do. I replied, "It is Saturday, so they won't sue you today. Your part is to act rich, thereby showing perfect faith that you will receive it by Monday." She asked me to lunch with her to keep her courage up. When I joined her at the restaurant, I said, "This is no time to economize. Order an expensive lunch and act as if you've already received the $3,000. All things, whoever ye ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." You must act as if you have already received. Active faith. The next morning, she called me on the phone and asked me to stay with her during the day. I said, "No, you are divinely protected and God is never too late." In the evening, she phoned again, greatly excited, and said, "My dear, a miracle has happened. I was sitting in my room this morning when the doorbell rang. I said to the maid, 'Don't let anyone in.' The maid, however, looked out the window and said, 'It's your cousin with the long white beard.' So I said, 'Call him back. I would like to see him.' He was just turning the corner when he heard the maid's voice, and he came back. He talked to me for about an hour, and just as he was leaving, he said, 'Oh, by the way, how are finances?' I told him that I needed the money and said, 'Well, my dear, I will give you $3,000 the first of the month.' I didn't like to tell him I was going to be sued. What shall I do? I won't receive it till after the first of the month, and I must have it tomorrow," I said. Well, I said I'll keep on treating. I said, "Spirit is never too late." I give thanks she has received the money on the invisible plane and that it manifests on time. The next morning, her cousin called her up and said, "Come to my office this morning and I will give you the money." That afternoon, she had $3,000 to her credit in the bank and wrote checks as rapidly as her excitement would permit. I'll do everything with a sense of reliance upon the law of good. Therefore, I know that my word shall not return to me void. Ernest Holmes. If one acts for success and prepares for failure, he will get the situation he has prepared for. For example, a man came to me asking to speak the word that a certain debt would be wiped out. I found he had spent his time planning what he would say to the man when he did not pay his bill, thereby neutralizing my words. He should have seen himself paying the debt. We have a wonderful illustration of this in the Bible relating to the 3 kings who were in the desert without water for their men and horses. They consulted the prophet Elijah, who gave them this astonishing message. "Thus saith the Lord, Ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet make this valley full of ditches." Man must prepare for the thing he asks for, when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight. For example, a woman found it necessary to look for an apartment during a year where there was a great shortage of apartments in New York. It was considered almost an impossibility, and her friends were sorry for her and said, "Isn't it too bad? You'll have to store your furniture and live in a hotel." She replied, "You needn't feel sorry for me. I'm a Superman, and I'll get an apartment." She spoke the words. Infinite Spirit opened the way for the right apartment. She knew there was a supply for every demand, and that and that she was unconditioned, working on the spiritual plane, and that one with God is a majority. She had contemplated buying new blankets when the tempter, the adverse thought or reasoning mind, suggested, "Don't buy the blankets. Perhaps after all, you won't get the apartment and you'll have no use for them." She promptly replied to herself, "I'll dig my ditches by buying the blankets." So she prepared for the apartment, acted as though she already had it. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. Albert Einstein. She found an apartment in a miraculous way, and it was given to her, although there was over 200 other applicants. The blankets showed active faith. It is needless to say that the ditches dug by the three kings in the desert were filled to overflowing. Read 2 Kings. Getting into the spiritual swing of things is no easy matter for the average person. The adverse thoughts of doubt and fear surge from the subconscious. They are the army of the aliens which must be put to flight. This explains why it is so often the darkest before the dawn. A big demonstration is usually preceded by tormenting thoughts. Having made the statement of high spiritual truth, one challenges the old beliefs of the subconscious, and error is exposed to be put out. This is the time when one must make his affirmations of truth repeatedly, and rejoice and give thanks that he has already received. Before ye call, I shall answer. This means that every good and every perfect gift is already man's awaiting his recognition. Man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. The children of Israel were told that they could have all the land they could see. This is true of every man. He has only the land within his own mental vision. Every great work, every big accomplishment has been brought into manifestation through holding to the vision, and often just before the big achievement comes apparent failure and discouragement. The children of Israel, when they reached the promised land, were afraid to go in, for they said it was filled with giants who made them feel like grasshoppers. And there we saw the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. This is almost every man's experience. However, the one who knows spiritual law is undisturbed by appearances and rejoices while he is yet in captivity. That is, he holds to his vision and gives thanks that the end is accomplished, he is received. Jesus gave a wonderful example of this. He said to his disciples, "Say ye not, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh the harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look onto the field, for they are ripe already to harvest." His clear vision pierced the world of matter, and he saw clearly the fourth dimensional world. Things as they really are, perfect and complete in divine mind. So man must ever hold the vision of his journey's end and demand the manifestation of that which he has already received. It may be in his perfect health, love, supply, self-expression, home, or friends. The universe will reward you for taking risk on its behalf. Shati Gwain. I don't know how to say that. I saw him a few weeks later, and I said, "What happened? You evidently had plenty of time after all." He replied, "My train was late, and I got there just 15 minutes to 12. I walked into the bank and quietly said, 'I have come for the money. I've come for the loan.' And they gave it to me without a question. It was the last 15 minutes of the time allotted to him, and Infinite Spirit was not too late. In this instance, the man could never have demonstrated alone. He needed someone to help him hold the vision. This is what one man can do for another. Jesus Christ knew the truth of this when he said, 'If 2 of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven.' One gets too close to his own affairs and becomes doubtful and fearful. The friend or healer sees clearly the success, health, or prosperity and never wavers because he is not close to the situation. It is much easier to demonstrate for someone else than for oneself, so a person should not hesitate to ask for help if he feels himself wavering. A keen observer of life once said, "No man can fail if some one person sees him successful." Such is the power of the vision and the many of great men who owed his success to a wife, a sister, or a friend who believed in him and held without wavering to the perfect pattern. Reflections. Man must prepare for the thing he has asked for when there isn't the slightest sign in sight. 2 Kings in the Bible encourage us to dig the ditches. What does this mean to you, and how can you dig ditches in your life? Number 2. A big demonstration is usually preceded by tormenting thoughts. Have you experienced tormenting thoughts? How do those thoughts make you feel? Can you reframe them as a sign that a big demonstration is on the way? Number 3. I told her God was her supply, and that there is a supply for every demand. Have you ever thought that something other than God or life was the supply for your good, such as your job or a family member or a monthly payment? Can you now see that those are merely the channels and not the source of your supply? Take your turn. Number 1. Refer to your answer in the first question above and choose one ditch you can begin digging to prepare for the rain of good that is coming your way. Remember, digging ditches means preparing for your good in advance. Start your preparations today. Number 2. It is much easier to demonstrate for someone else than for someone's self. So, a person should not hesitate to ask for help if he feels himself wavering. Make a list of people who see only the best for you, and then ask them to begin saying affirmations for your good. Choose 1 to 3 people at minimum. Make sure to say affirmations for their good as well. And number 3, pick one of the affirmations or positive statements from this chapter, write it down on a small piece of paper or sticky note, and repeat it 100 times each day for a week. Notice all the ways, big or small, your life mirrors the positive idea.